Hi, this is Sammy again. Today we're gonna do operations with powers. So maybe I should write a few rules for you before we start. So x to the power of a times x to the power of b is the same as x to the power of a plus b. What does that mean? It means when you multiply variables, you add their exponents. If you're dividing variables, you subtract their exponents. And also if you have x to the power of something in brackets and you have another power on the outside, so ab, then the power outside of the exponent outside of the brackets gets multiplied into the exponent inside the brackets. So this becomes x to the power of ab. So these are just rules that you have to remember when you're doing things like this. But when we're doing something like this right here, there are so many ways to do this, honestly. But what I recommend is, first of all, you see your numbers right here. These are the coefficients. Reduce your numbers before, like, a lot of students will just multiply the tops together and they get 90x to the 10 over 10x to the 14th. These numbers here, they become very big sometimes. You don't see what the reducing factor is after you multiply them like that. But if you go back here and you think, you know what, I'm gonna just look at the coefficients here and reduce them. So to reduce the coefficients, right away, 10 and 15, I know 5 goes into both of them, 5 goes into 10 twice, and goes into 15 3 times. All right. Now, this 2 here that I have, it goes into itself once, and it goes into 18 9 times. At this stage, you could now multiply tops together and bottoms together. So 9 times 3 is 27. And then x to the x cubed times x to the 7 gives me x to the 10. And I'm going to get, you know what, I'm just going to write that a bit lower here, so you don't mix it up with the, so as I said, I'm going to get 9 times 3 is 27, x to the 10, because you add the exponents when you're multiplying, all over 1, which I don't have to write, and then x to the 14. Okay. Now, even though I'm telling you the rules here, when you're dividing, you minus the exponents. If you do this, you're going to get a negative exponent. But what you should do, always when you're reducing variables, pay attention to this. When you reduce variables, you go to the variable with the lower exponent, which is x to the 10. You go x to the 10 divided by x to the 10 gives me 1. And x to the 14 times x to the 14 divided by x to the 10 gives me x to the 4, because you minus the exponents. And therefore, you end up with 27. And the x that's left over there is on the bottom, so you should keep it on the bottom, x to the 4. So that's one example. Now we'll do another example. So if we have -9 a to the 7 times -8 a to the 9 all over -18 a to the 8. All right. So first of all, let's all agree that the answer is going to be negative. So we get rid of that hurdle. Is it negative or positive? Because negative times negative here is positive, and then positive divided by negative is going to be negative. So now, since we determined the answer is negative, I'm just going to get rid of all my negative signs here, because we determined that the answer is going to be negative. Again, the same thing after that bracket. This brackets right here don't really mean anything. Okay, you could do with them or without them. You could have just wrote 8 without that. But anyways, now, as I told you earlier here, with the numbers, just try to reduce them early. So 9 goes into itself once. It goes into 18 2 times. Now also 2 goes into itself once, and it goes into 8 4 times. Okay. Now, at this stage, you say, okay, I'm going to multiply tops together. So 1 times 4 is 4. Of course, it's negative, the answer. And 8 to the 7 times 8 to the 9 is 8 to the 16th. And on the bottom, you have 1, a to the 8, so you don't have to write the 1, and so you have a to the 8 right here. All right. And this here will give you a -4. As I said, with the variables, you look at the one with the lowest exponent, which is a to the 8. You go a to the 8 goes into itself once, and a to the 8 goes into a to the 16, a to the 8 times. Just basically means a to the 8 divided by a to the 8 gives you 1, and a to the 16 divided by a to the 8, it will give you a to the 8 because you minus the exponents, okay? Now you could look at this here and you say, you know, why do we write the x to the 4 on the bottom here, and here we write 8 to the 8 on top? Well, if x with the highest exponent is on the bottom, then you know whatever is going to be left over is going to be on the bottom. If a here, the one that has the higher exponent is on top, then you know your a to the 8 is going to be on top. Whatever is left is going to be on top. So that's the rule. If it's x to the 10 here is less than x to the 14, this is the bigger one. So when we reduce these, then I get x to the 4. That x to the 4 has to be on the bottom. Okay, we'll do one more. It's going to be a little bit more complicated than the other ones. You know what? I'm going to do this one and do one more after this. Just I see a few things that could cause students problems, and especially the one that I'm going to do next. But let's go to this one right here. When we have an exponent outside of the brackets, it has to get multiplied into the exponent inside the brackets. So there you go. Now, when you do that, remember, some people, they say, oh, I'm going to go 3 times 4. No, 4 is not an exponent. You multiply the exponents, not the exponent and the base. The 4 is a base. But we got to remember that this 4 here has a 1 on top, and this 4 has a 1 on top. So when you do that, what you're going to get 4 cubed a to the 15. Do you remember? Multiply the exponents, eh? And then times 4 squared a to the 12, multiplying the exponents. 2 times 6, 12, 2 times 1 is 2. And we have 4 a to the 4. Now you could figure out that 4 squared is 16, 4 cubed is 64, and then multiply them and get big numbers and all of that. But honestly, you don't have to do that. And I'll tell you why. Now, because the bases here are the same, then I could go, okay, 4 cubed times 4 squared. When I'm multiplying bases, I add their exponents. So this becomes 4 to the 5, a to the 27, all over 4, a to the 4. Yeah. Now, this is to the 1. And when you're dividing, you minus the exponent. So this becomes 4 to the 4. And a to the 27 divided by a to the 4, you minus the exponents, and you get a to the 23. 27 minus 4. And therefore, 4 to the 4 gives you 256. Oops. So 4 to the 4 gives you 256 and a to the 23. And that's your answer for that one. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to do one more. Just I see some challenges with the next one that I want to make sure that students can do that. You know, when you're teaching math, students usually end up having questions like, how did this happen? Why we did this in the first question and we couldn't do that in this question? Math is always like, there are so many ways to do things, and it, you know, it definitely, those questions, when students ask them, they clarify a lot of things for students. I'm hoping to go live soon so that students could ask questions and I could clarify things for them. So soon you'll see me live doing this kind of stuff, and then you could ask questions, and I'll announce when that's going to happen. It's not going to happen for another couple of weeks, but it will happen eventually. All right, so let's look here. We're doing this, all right? So that negative that's right there, you got to stay negative. Whenever you have an exponent, all right, and you have a negative number, if the exponent here is even, like the 2 and the 4, that negative becomes positive. So right away, you could say that negative becomes positive, and the 2 here has a 1, so it becomes 2 squared, or you could write 4 right away, but I'll just write 2 squared. The negative became positive because of the even exponent, and that becomes x to the 8, multiplying the exponents. Here, because again, as I said, if the exponent is even, that negative automatically becomes positive, and this becomes x to the 8. You multiply the exponent outside the brackets into the exponent inside the brackets. When the exponent is odd, the negative stays a negative, so that becomes negative, and the 3 will have a power of 3 on top of it because it has a 1 right here, and you have to multiply the exponent, and here the 2 also had a 1, that's why it became 2 squared. And also x here has a 1, so 3 times 1 is 3. And therefore, now we look at this and we say, okay, I'm going to start simplifying. That's 2 squared is 4. And x to the 8 times x to the 8 here is x to the 16 all over negative, that 3 over 3 is 3 cubed, sorry, is 27 x cubed. Now, negative on top always cancels the negative on the bottom because negative divided by negative is positive. 4 and 27, you cannot reduce them, so that's just stays 4 and 27. X cubed goes into itself once and goes into x to 16, x to the 13 times. Basically, I divided x cubed by x cubed, I got 1. I divided x by 16 by x to the 3, or by x cubed, then you get x to the 13th. Always divide by the variable with the lowest exponent, you know, to reduce. And that's what I got, and that's your final answer. Thanks for watching again. Don't forget to hit that like button. Also, subscribe to my channel, and please share with others so they could benefit. Till next time, stay tuned for my next video. Take care. Bye-bye.